Hi everyone, I'm Danny. Welcome back to Neither Here Nor There Conversations Across
Fortune telling. Hi everyone, my name is Christina. So today we're going to talk about fortune telling. There probably are many different ways to go about this. But the main reason we are touching upon this topic today is because Danny, as many of you are curious about why from time to time there are stories around me regarding fortune telling. So we wanted to dive into that today. What do you think, Danny?
about fortune telling in general.
Or about the angle and the narrow aspect that we're giving it today.
I think fortune telling is an interesting one because it not only relates to Chinese fortune telling,
Yeah.
but it also relates to, for me, it relates to all the other, astrological star signs and
Crystal balls.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
All of it.
And so that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because I have a bit of a curiosity from when I was younger, my mindset changing a lot as I've gotten older.
Absolutely.
I'm not into mysticism. I still love the idea of witchcraft, even though I really wish witchcraft was real, but okay.
Or it is. I mean, who are you to decide?
Who am I to decide? Also, I may not be a very strong believer. Last episode, we were talking about how maybe I didn't pray hard enough. But yeah, so maybe I'm not believing enough, but
Your convictions.
yeah, so that's what I think about. That's what I want to talk about today.
Perfect. So we'll bring in different angles today. You will know that I'll probably bring in more of my own experience and you will bring in your perspective. And I think that'll be very interesting hopefully for the viewers.
Hope so.
Or not. No. So to start off, what is fortune telling for you?
Fortune telling for me right now is, it's almost like a guiding light, and that's really poetic to say, but basically I tried, I was never really one to believe in this kind of stuff, and I used to do it for fun with friends, and then earlier last year I remember you were I went to go do this thing, and we were at the bathhouse, and
This bathhouse was life-changing, clearly.
Yeah, it was. But our mutual friend, you were telling me that her uncle was really good and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to give it a try because I was in an inflection point of my life. Things were changing. I was about to get a new job and all that kind of stuff. And so I went just for fun and out of curiosity. And I remember just sitting there. And for me, it was more while he was telling me all these things, it was I do know that a lot of times psychologically people like this kind of stuff because it helps, it makes them feel better. It's comforting.
Yes.
And for this, it was comforting. And for me, it was instead of saying that it's true, it was more I took what I wanted from it.
Yeah.
That information that I wanted to, the goals that I wanted to go for.
Yeah.
And it helped me get in touch with myself, see what I wanted, see what I liked when he said this, when he said that. And that really helped me. So I don't personally know. I will always keep an open mind to believe that, maybe there is a powerful entity in the world like God looking out for me. I will be open to it. I'll always be open to it. So I'll always be open to fortune telling being true. But for me, it was more rather than telling my fate, it was more it was me figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like and what I wanted for myself. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great. It was a great thing.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think for a lot of people, to be honest, I think it is a sort of guiding light, some sort of reassurance. You are right that there are probably in many people's mind, that fortune telling can be such a stronghold on people's decision making, on people how they live life, and I can see that. I haven't experienced it, but I can imagine. We've seen the caricature versions of this where people are too dependent on this, relying on this, making decisions based on what they are told to do and whatnot. But I like this aspect of it better, where it's more of a guiding light. And I think particularly for people maybe in our stage in our lives, when there's an inflection point where you feel like you're maybe a little bit lost and you want a direction, it does provide you some assurance that no matter what decision you make, you are on the right track. And I think that idea it's helpful for some. Some people accept that from their friends and family. Some people feel like they are biased, so they want a more third-party view on it, and that also provides some reassurance.
I feel like a good story for that is, I think I saw this on like Instagram or something, but basically it was go up to someone and if you have a decision, ask them. And when you give them the two different options and whatever they tell you back, you actually know your answer. Do you know what I mean?
I've heard of this before.
Yeah, it's just like that. And so like that's how I feel about fortune telling. That's what my experience was. I remember growing up, I have one of my friends, he's, a doctor, very, very atheist, not agnostic. He basically was just like, you believe in astrology? I was like, no, I don't. He's like, yeah, because it's like not real. And I do get that. But still, again, it goes back to that. It is comforting. And I want to know how I feel about the answers I'm getting. Do I feel good about that? Maybe. Yes, no. Do I work towards it? Do I just file it away? Act like it doesn't exist? Or, it gets me in touch with myself. I like that. So I have, quite a positive experience, I think.
Yeah. So going back a little bit, because we've talked about how maybe in the past you weren't so open to it, and then slowly with time, do you think it's aligned with this idea of maybe being more open to faith and all of that? Or how do you view this two different journeys?
I will add a little bit in there. So fortune telling, Chinese fortune telling, like we did I Ching, right? What did we do?
It's like purple star. Whether probably, like, I am no expert in this, so I don't want to mess it up for anyone.
Shoot. Okay, whatever. So Chinese fortune telling, since we were kids, like my mom, anytime we went to the temple with my dad, for my dad, she would go with us, and then we would do like a fun reading on the side. So I was always open to Chinese zodiac, like Chinese fortune telling more than I was to astrology. Astrology just seemed like, I feel like they didn't have good enough marketing. Their PR wasn't very good, just in general. They always had a connotation where it's like stuff you find in Cosmopolitan magazine, and it was like.
But can I just say it's coming back, Danny?
It is coming back. It has come back
because I hear it a lot more now, like a lot more.
That's something that we're gonna have to talk about, but I feel like when I was growing up, it was something you read at Cosmopolitan. It was something like that only women really did, and which is not true anymore. I know there's men that really enjoy astrology now. Wait, because when I was younger, I didn't know it. I didn't talk astrology to any guys. Like, basically, my point is that I feel like for me growing up, like Chinese fortune telling had more influence on me, and I wasn't like against it. It was just like I didn't really think much of it. I suppose, again, you're right, with the crossroads. I'm, getting more in touch. I'm in my 30s too. And, when we're all in our 30s, we tend to know ourselves better. We went through our 20s already. 20s is more tumultuous. You're more on your own, whatever. And once you get to your 30s, you know yourself better. And this was kind of another thing, getting to know yourself better.
Oh my gosh, this is perfect. We'll pinpoint this because there's something I will come back to. But I think going back off the beginning part where we were talking about comparing different things, of course, because there are people who, maybe lean into like crystal balls. Some people look into birds, animals. Like there's honestly many forms of it, and I won't be the judge of the validity of it, of any of those. But you're right that maybe maybe I am particularly more open to kind of what I've been seeing, which is this purple star astrology, which I do think it does come from the origins of I Ching, which is like comes from along a line of Chinese tradition.
Yeah.
And it does have ties to like the Indian astrology and to all of these Western astrologies with their own tweaks to it. But it is not definitive. I think the reason why I am more open to it is because it's not saying this is your fate and it's sealed. Rather, it's telling you, if we believe in energies or fortunes, right, of the highs and lows, and just to lean into the highs and maybe protect yourself from the lows. And I think that idea, it's, I appreciate more because I still feel like I do feel empowered to do my own actions and not just, stay there and have life happen to me.
I mean, that's always the point, no matter what. I mean, they have stories about this. You don't just, no, they don't have stories about this. But it was more like, that's exactly how I feel. I feel like I'm not stuck with any decision that I have to make. I feel like I still have my own power to make decisions. Yeah.
And then going back to what you're saying about, people in the 30s, especially particularly women, perhaps, I will say I think they're more open to it. And funnily, many of my friends that you would consider them maybe more rational, logical, people who are very educated and all of that, and everyone's very open to leaning into this idea of having a guiding force of some sort, use it as another decision-making input. And I think that's just very interesting. I never would have thought, I guess, in other words, that in my 30s, I would have so many of my friends want more of this,
Yeah.
In the past, I would have thought it would be like a little taboo to even talk about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, two questions there. One, do you think your friends, is it because it's outside their normal culture that they find it more, that they're more open to it? And then the second one is, why? Do they have the same thinking as us? Like, as me, what is it?
So I think the first part is, it's actually, I think, culture neutral. People who grew up in cultures that are more into this are very open, and people who are not are also very open, which is fascinating to me, to be honest. With that said, the more I think about it, actually all cultures have very similar traditions. I just maybe wasn't as privy to, but now that I talk more about it or like hear more examples, everyone has done it in some sort of version, be it Latin America, be it the US, be it Europe, be it India, East Asia. So I think it does come across different versions of this. And to your second question about how open they are, I think it's along the same veins. No one thinks their fate is sealed, but everyone is open to the idea of some sort of guiding light. And actually, weirdly, there was a point in my life where I was very confused about life. I actually surveyed a lot of my friends. I asked them, do you think there's free will? Do you think everything is set? The majority of people did tell me they believed in free will, but there were some people that were like, doesn't matter what you do, your fate is sealed. And you can argue, oh, maybe they're different, backgrounds. None of these are like as similar as you can get, like within the business school crowd,
Okay, so the fate being sealed one, that's an interesting one to me, because then that's, the idea of like you believe in destiny, as well as, I mean, okay, the way that I'm wrapping my head around it is that your fate could be sealed if time actually isn't linear. We are living on a linear timeline, but and that's a whole physics thing. It's like a very interstellar type deal. That's just so interesting. But the reason why I keep coming back to this is because I feel like America has like a negative connotation on like readings like this. But then here in Asia, like I have no problem. People do it all the time. If I tell my friends about it, they're like, oh, cool. I want to do that too. But like in America, I think it's because in the movies, they have such a negative connotation towards this kind of stuff.
Do you think it's age though?
That's what I was saying. I was saying, are your friends more open to doing this kind of stuff because it's Asia and it's
age. Like, is it because we're older? Like, I wonder because I had the same view when I was in my 20s, going back also to spirituality, religion, faith. In our 20s, I just feel like everyone, just in general, were very like against. Now that we're in our 30s, somehow people are more open to it. I also say this because going back to the US as an example, calling out some of my friends, but a lot of them are into like astrology. And my understanding is in like LA, people just talk about it as if it's like MBTI and then their astrology, like astrological sign, is just like a social norm.
This could also be the people that you hang out with too, though.
These are not my friends. These are their friends. These are people who are very removed from me. I don't even know these people. This is just like a community of lawyers and businessmen and doctors in LA.
Maybe it's because society is, we've become so pragmatic and so separated from religion. I do kind of feel like, obviously with the digital age, at the millennium when internet started to really boom, information was everywhere, their younger kids don't get into religion as much, don't get into institutions like that. And maybe because of their, like that kind of community disconnect from like religion, which is tied to spirituality, that we're going back to stuff like crystals and astrology.
I have my own hypothesis from my own experience. I think from early on, especially in a society where, most societies where it's very focused on like achievement, success, you make your plan, you hit certain milestones. At some point, you're done. Like, what else is there? And then you are very lost. You don't know what comes next. Do you just keep following this path? But, you're supposed to, go to elementary school, middle school, high school, college, then maybe like a couple of jobs, and then what? Like the plan at some point is just like, you can't plan every detail. So at some point, I think with age, you enter this chapter of, what do I do and who can help me decide? There's no right or wrong anymore.
That feels quite like a personal, actually, journey of yours, because mine is quite different. Mine's not like that at all.
I think it's personal, yet people who might have gone the same path feel similarly. Hence, I think a lot of my friends, the reason why a lot of them are into this fortune telling at this stage in life is because we are all entering this unknown and everyone's feeling equally lost. So then I can speak for the subset of people for sure. But yeah, we'll love to hear your experience.
No, I agree with you. I know that subset, I grew up with some of those subsets, but because for me, mine wasn't very set. Like, my life story was not very set. I had a life story when I was like, 8? And then another one at like 11 where I'd be like, okay, where I would get married in college. I would have a massive wedding. I had my dress all planned out. It was drawn out and everything. And I'd have like 8 children. So that was maybe because I went a little bit too far with my fantasies or my like
children.
Projections. Anyways, so, yeah, it's interesting to see the difference in that because, and how I guess we now approach our own spiritualities. It's quite different, to be honest. And I think mine was just because I never had a structured this, and this. I didn't even think that I was going to go to college. But I did. And then after that, I had no idea. I didn't even know I was going to be a videographer when I got out of college. So...
And at any point in that, did you think, I need to seek an astrologer?
Not at all. Not at all. Like, I would go to college, I would read, like, those magazines and then get to the astrology section just for fun. Just to be like, what's it got to say about me? Just a little bit of touch of narcissism, be like, what good fortune do I have today? But that was it. And, the only fortune telling that was in my life was once in a while my mom would be like, it's the horse year, it'll be a bad year for you, or it's this and it will be a good year for you. And she's very she would give us our fortune because she's really into that stuff too, but she'd also have a little message and be like, this is just an idea. It's not true. It's not sealed. It's not sealed. And but she does believe in fate, which is another topic.
She believes in fate?
It's meant to be.
Yeah, but I do like that idea.
Like, it's fate.
Yeah, that one I think I like it because it sounds so romantic. But you're meant to meet people? No?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
That certain people come into your life for a certain reason?
Sometimes when I'm in a good mood. Yeah.
So I think going back a little bit to what you were saying earlier, this idea of like at every age, people change. And because I've started being more involved, I would say, with like Chinese fortune telling and having people come see my fortune teller and all of that. There's this quote from Confucius that I don't even know how I came across it, to be honest. And I think I use it because I think it's really funny. It says, I'll say it in Chinese first and I'll translate. It's a long quote, but it comes with 30而立 40而不惑 50而知天命. So it means at 30, you are finally grown up. You've learned your entire life. You can stand on your own 2 feet, so you're able to stand firm. At 40, when you're 40, you will learn to not doubt yourself. You'll know how to proceed. You'll know how to do life, right? Because now you have experience. And by 50, you will know that there is not everything is in your control, and there's such thing as the things that are beyond. And then Confucius goes on more and more about 60, 70 and whatnot. But I stop here because I think it's really interesting. It's really funny because even someone as wise as he was, he even recognizes there are things that are beyond his control. He calls it fate or whatever, but he believes there are things that are just not, even if you want it, if you will it, there is such thing as chance or whatever you want to call it. And the reason I love this quote is because when people ask me, so how did you get into this? Why are you into fortune telling? I go, instead of waiting to 50, in my 30s, I already know this. So that's my little tie to it, because I do think at different stages in life, you start shifting your perspective. And this is kind of my perspective right now. At 30, I'm doing what Confucius thought at 50.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking, as you said, I gotta wait till 50 to really let that idea of this is out of my control sink in. But no, that was back in the day.
Yeah. And then and it's funny because to kind of our conversation earlier, I often do look back at my 20-year-old self, 25, how stubborn I was. I truly believed everything was in my control. And I think with age, everyone becomes less stubborn. They're more open to things and stuff like that. Maybe like with age, we also become more stubborn. I don't know what the inflection point of that one is, but we shall monitor. But yeah, I think looking back, now being more open, it's the Christina in college years would have been like, what's going on? This is ridiculous.
That's interesting that you say that, because my college years would have been open to it. I would have been fine with it. I wouldn't have taken it too seriously. Yeah. I still don't take it too seriously now, but I definitely have a different mindset about it.
Yeah.
I definitely have more thoughts about it, for sure. But it's interesting that you say that. We're so different back in college.
We definitely, I think in life we started off a completely opposite points.
I think we did.
And we are meeting in the middle of life. Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think...
No, that's romantic. I like that. That's nice.
But that's reality.
Yeah.
And it's because, like your mother said, it was meant to be.
Maybe. Sure.
Thank you, Danny's mom. How about you though? Like, do you feel like I know you're more open to it, right? And like you're shifting this perspective and all of that, but has there been anything in particular other than just, maybe growing up with it culturally, like something that has pushed you to being more open to it? I guess I'm also asking this from my own perspective because I do vividly remember having a very big inflection point in my life for me to lean towards this.
So before in your 20s, you would not have been into this at all?
No.
Huh.
I can even tell you, even in 2020, I was here in Taiwan and I took a friend and she wanted to go. And I was like, in my mind, just thinking, this is all just like a bunch of BS. Who knew? Like, honestly, who would have thought, like, even a year later, this would like become, I don't want to sound cheesy, but at some point it really became some sort of, like a saving grace, like in a way of like, believing that there's something, just even though I could feel so low, that something, if it will be fine. It will all work out. This idea of that it will all work out really can like change your perspective and lift you out of a very sad mood.
I mean, yeah. It's like it's not comfortable walking in the dark or feeling like you're walking in the dark. It's scary.
Yeah,
it's nice to have someone holding your hand while you do it.
Yeah, because it's much easier to say looking back, it was an experience, it will all be fine, it will all work out. It's always easier when you're already on the other side. When you're in it, you don't know if this tunnel will ever end. As a result, it's really hard to see through. So I think having some sort of belief in like something crazy, it's helpful.
So your question is why do you think in my 20s or
like how has that journey been? Because for me, it's like no, and then boom, then like open to it versus like how are you similar in that way, or for you it's just always something around that you're just now like, oh, why not? Christina talks about it enough, so.
I mean, that's why I went in the first place. Also because of our mutual friend said like you should go give it a try, and she's not the type to be like, she definitely was not the type to say like I believe in that kind of stuff
when she was younger.
Yeah, so for her to say that, I was like, okay. And honestly, like stuff like that just makes me feel better, because I think it might be my personality, and it might be my personality or the fact that it gives me a bit of a dopamine hit where I'm like, if I'm low and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, maybe it wouldn't be fortune telling, maybe it would be something else. I'd be like, all right, I'll give that a try. Why not? Like it might help. And stuff like that sometimes gives me a boost. It gives me a boost. I'll eventually forget about it. To be honest, it only lasts like a week or two. Okay. And then the high wears off.
Yeah.
But I've always been open to trying new ideas to try and help me,
okay,
to make me either feel better or just to push me in a different direction, or a direction that I never thought that I was going to go on. So like you said, when you were growing up, you had like, you go to this school, then that school, then this, and that, and that. I never really had that. So I'm not saying that I did it right, for sure. I think I messed up a lot in my teens and 20s, but For me, trying things like that and being open to stuff like that was just a way to be like, does that fit? I don't know. Maybe this fits, and then keep going down different paths. I never know what you're gonna get. Mm-hmm. And then that got me here, I guess.
How do you think this differs from religion and spirituality and faith, and not just for you particularly, but just in general for other people as well? Do you you alluded to it earlier a little bit that maybe for some it replaces, but I'm curious to know like more about those thoughts.
I find it quite different. But it isn't different, is it? It's actually quite similar. It's quite similar. But it more aligns to my thinking about, I'm not saying that there is an entity. I'm saying that there is power. There's something out of my knowledge. And this more aligns to that because it's not saying like, oh, a God, right? God is giving you this fortune. It's not that. It's just power that be, the universe. So it's different for me, but it's kind of the same. That's not really an answer. Can you give me your answer so I can work on that?
I think what you're maybe trying to allude to, which I think I align with, is the sentiment, the feeling, the result that people get out of it is probably similar. It's the comfort of being watched over, it's the comfort of things will work out, is this third-party reassurance that everything will be fine.
That's where it's similar, but that's not how I view it, though. I don't view it that way. For me, it purely is, I get to see what I feel when I hear news like that. How does it feel? Does it fit into my persona?
Yeah, but I guess my point is more for like, how do people compare these two things?
I don't know. I have no idea. How do they? Have you asked other people?
I haven't asked people who are religious. So it's hard to know.
That could be something that we should ask people.
Because then maybe in some ways it could contradict, right?
Why?
Because essentially you are leaning towards one thing, one learning versus other. And for example, I mean, I'll use the Christianity because I know it better. But in theory, you are supposed to only believe in one higher power. So even any other force, it's witchcraft, call it what you will, it deviates from your beliefs and convictions of that religion. So in theory, it contradicts.
Is fortune telling tied to a religion? Is it? Do we know?
I don't think so. It technically isn't. Maybe not.
Is astrology tied to Zoroastrianism?
I don't know what that is.
It's the precursor to Buddhism.
The precursor, I thought it was Hinduism.
Which is the precursor, whose precursor is Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
We should do our research on that.
Yeah, I know. We're really out of our depth. We're so sorry, guys. This is embarrassing.
I didn't study too hard in religious studies when I was growing up, so.
They technically come from the studies of stars and planets, of movements of stars and planets, so it's actually more that angle. Sorry, let's clarify. The type of fortune telling that we're talking about right now, just so we don't loop everything in. What you're asking me about astrology, about Chinese fortune telling, all of that is particularly more along those lines. Whether that's tied to religion, I think there are ways people are tying them together, because my understanding is in Indian astrology, for example, if there are certain results or certain outcomes that you want changed, there are traditions, rituals that you can perform, right? So I think there is some ties there as well. And I do believe maybe similarly in Chinese astrology or fortune telling.
Chinese. Also. Well, no, they do the same thing in Chinese fortune telling.
Yes.
I mean, my dad's business would do banquets every year. Not a banquet, would do bye-bye, temple.
Yeah, but but people will be like, oh, I see this happening. You need to go pray. You need to actually do things to change that fate. And that is very, I think, tied to religion already. And that happens a lot in Indian astrology as well. If you want to avoid your first divorce, you got to do something first or whatever. Things like that.
So we're actively avoiding fates?
That's, I think, a little bit already beyond the scope of what I know. I won't claim to know any of this.
Huh. I mean, that brings me into just the idea of whether or not when you're told your fate. There's so many like stories about this. If you guys want, watch Kung Fu Panda 3. It's great. But in that story is like they tell this prince his fate. He's told that he's gonna die. He's gonna be king, but he's gonna die or something like that, and that his downfall is all pandas, like a panda, and so he goes and kills all these pandas, and then at the end of it, he works so hard to change his fate that in the end.
It comes to
fruition. And it's always the idea of, are you going to go and accept your fate, or are you going to fight it?
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes if fortune telling in that sense is actually not good.
But it really depends, right? It goes back to what we were talking about. At least based on my experience, it's not like this is your fate. You will be at this corner, blue sky, and someone will give you a bag of cash. Like, it's not that at all. Rather, it's telling you, if you decide to go into business, for example, this is like the more fortuitous timing and whatnot, but it's no guarantee, nor is it telling you exactly the results of things. So and then business is so wide, you can do anything you might like, right? And depends also who you choose to partner with. Maybe choosing person A versus choosing person B, it changes the dynamic and it changes the results. So
I'd like to go back and talk more about how we definitely met at opposite ends, and I like that concept, and I want to kind of discuss it more and what your thoughts are about that, because I definitely think that we are quite different. We have similar, morals, or like, you know how we usually when we usually discuss things, we come from opposite ends where we end up at the same point. We see things from different perspectives.
You mean we end up at my point?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about that in terms of like fortune telling and I don't know
how we are different, but we are all fortune. What's your question?
I don't really have a question. I'm just opening discussion board to that. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting like point. How we're at opposite. We started at opposite ends and we ended up kind of in a similar.
We ended up same. In their 30s, lost and needing guidance. As a result, we ended up in the same place doing fortune telling. I think just to tie this a little bit to like kind of my own experience, because I did want to go into maybe a little bit more of the fun aspects of this.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of just like the myriads. At this point, I consider myself like a collectionist of different experiences through this.
Okay.
And I think, to your point, there are people who have now gone through this experience with me that have come from very different backgrounds, a myriad of experiences, and we are ending up very similarly, right, to this need of guidance, be it guidance in career, guidance in next step in life, guidance in marriage, guidance in having children. You would think that at some point we are comfortable and assured of our present circumstances, and it's funny how we will always want to know what we don't know. So I think going back to that, no matter where we start, we always just want some sort of assurance that what we don't know is going to work out. So I think with that said, it's been very interesting to hear some of people's worries, right? And some of people's like doubts and what they need reassurance. And I have this one friend who went through this experience and she was told, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be amazing. It's so amazing that you don't ever need to get another reading. Like, you're done. And she actually said to me, can I just do this again? Pay to just hear the same exact thing again. And it just goes back to, I think, this idea of needing reassurance.
I don't know. If I were her, I'd want to have another reading too. I'd be like, did you get that right? Like, I'm not really sure. Yeah. I mean, come on. That's too good to be true. Everything's fucking great. Like, come on.
Great doesn't mean like nothing bad will ever happen. It just means like you will have overall in the average of life, you are winning.
Yeah. Trust yourself. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. And then when things do come true, it's always fun because I get these messages from friends who are like, Christina, you won't believe it, but this happened and this is exactly what happened. But I think predicting future is always a tricky thing. We won't go into that. But I think something that I was discussing with my sister yesterday, actually, which I thought was very, very interesting, is because a friend of mine from childhood from Peru reached out to me and she wanted to also get this done. And so my sister knows her and everything. And upon like, sharing some of like the advice that uncle kind of gave her was like, oh, like you should definitely try to be an entrepreneur. You should definitely travel more, which she hasn't done yet as much, or, starting her own business. Upon saying that to like, just even mentioning this to my sister, she was like, absolutely. Like, that's so clear in her personality. Like, without having to read her chart, that's exactly who she is. And I just found that so interesting. I found that so interesting because for people who don't know her, for people who know her, it's obvious. But for people who don't and able to interpret the same thing, it makes me kind of start just like being very, very curious about the correlations and how that all ties together. Like, is she this way because of the stars or whatever you want to call it? Or I don't know, or the stars made her this way. Like, it's very curious to know how her personality is actually predictable.
I mean, my personality is kind of predictable, I suppose. I fit a very big stereotype. Maybe you can find people, fortune tellers, that I'm just giving ideas of maybe what it could be.
Yeah.
Could be logically, maybe someone's really good at reading people and
But
giving
they look at you and they
accurate
go,
advice. Yeah. Or maybe they give relatively, and this is always a thing that they say in the scientific communities of being like, they give you like the generic advice, and the person or people, I'm guessing now, fit it to that person. And that could be also true too, because our brains want to do that. We want that information to be true. We want it to be true, so we wrap our heads around it, try to make it true.
Yeah.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah, but like it was just so specific because it was like, because if it wasn't relatable, then it wouldn't make sense,
Yeah, I guess.
Because she was like, what, has anyone like had
but that's the thing that they say, that there's actually articles about this, so in psychology, where they say your brain fits it. Your brain works at fitting it.
It's funny in this way, but at this point it's like two people hearing the same thing.
I don't know.
I'll
always be open to it.
I just find it very curious because I was like, wow, like this is exactly her. And to be able to describe that, it's just funny.
How about mine? You were there with my reading.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to say that because I didn't know you enough to judge it based on
well, you know me now.
Yeah, but I don't remember what was said then.
Okay, we'll go over the list later.
But this one was because like I've known her for a long, long time, and I was like, wow, this is very specific. And I've always told her, I've always also known like she should do this, but it's funny to hear it again from a third party that doesn't know her. Oh, it's
nice. Then I hope she takes the advice and does the thing that she needs to do.
We shall see.
Yeah.
People sometimes can't take the leap, so it's hard to. All right, how are we doing on time? Are we good? Because I have one more section.
Yeah, we're good on time.
Okay, so I think well then I have actually one slight question before this. Do you think this differs from a therapist?
Yes.
How?
Yes. A therapist is meant to not give you fortune telling or advice. They're meant to help you figure out yourself.
But isn't it similar to what you're saying? They give you enough information to make you get and like what you want out of it and make decisions.
Where fortune telling tells you things like, you will have 3 kids. The therapist is not going to be like, maybe you should go have kids. They don't give you advice. They don't tell you information like that.
Okay.
They're meant to gear you like towards figuring out how to figure yourself out, rather than giving you news or information and then you attributing that how you feel. Yeah. Different. Do you think they're different?
I think they're pretty similar. At least I get the same out of it.
Huh. Interesting.
I'm also not a big therapy person, so I'm not the best person to judge this. Okay. The last piece here that I wanted to cover is this idea of reconciling the rational side of things versus this idea of leaving it to a higher power. Like, how do we balance these two? You go.
Am I the best person to ask about this?
I'm just curious. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't believe in a higher power. I mean, again, I will always be open to it. It's like ghosts. I'm not going to say I don't believe in ghosts because on the off chance that they do exist and they begin to haunt me, I'm going to be like, I respect you. It's the same thing. I don't believe I have any control in what I do. I have control of my body, my personhood, and the things that I say and do. I have control of that, but I don't have control of the things around me. I can't control the people, and there's no amount of willing an entity to help me that would really make it true. That's, I don't know, where I'm at in life. And even if I really believed, I mean, I really wanted a pony when I was 5, but, you know, Santa didn't give me one. I really wanted one, but it's not going to happen sometimes. So reality, I'm more for reality. And yourself?
That's not exactly the question, though.
What's the question?
The question is more, how do people, doesn't even have to be you, reconcile this idea of leaning towards having things that are some sort of defined, doesn't have to be 100%, versus this idea of like, in the rational world, to reconcile any of this. Because the only way to say I don't have any thoughts of it is just to say, there is no such any of this, right?
Kind of, yeah, I guess. I remember talking to someone that was really into the Enneagram, and they were saying, you know, they were a specific type. They were a type 5, and they were saying type 5s will work at everything to try and figure something out, try to figure out the universe. Or for this person, it was to figure out the universe. And I remember talking to that person being like, yeah, it is interesting, but I don't want to drive myself crazy, and I'll never get an answer out of it, so I don't really think about it. Yeah. There's no point. And they're like, yeah, as a type 5, doesn't matter what type, but as this type of person, I will stop at nothing. I will make it my life's journey to figure out the meaning of the universe.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm more the other type, or I just don't understand your question.
I guess my question is more how you cannot live in a world where you are open to things yet not accepted. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't understand what you mean.
Because you cannot say, I am willing to try everything and be open to it, but I don't believe any of it.
Okay.
Those two, in my mind, cannot coexist.
Why not?
Because the idea of being open to it it's contrarian to saying none of it exists.
I think that being open to all of it, you could like some of the options more than the others.
Right.
And that would be it. And the thing is about that is that it actually could change throughout life too.
Absolutely. But the fact that they are open and possibly liking it, you have to accept some sort of realism of it.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, in this moment in time, I do not believe in God.
Yeah.
10 years from now, I might believe in God. I'm still open to the idea of me changing my opinion about it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But
so
going back to fortune telling, so the idea of being open to the idea of that, how does one reconcile that with the rational side of saying, how can this fit into the scientific method or whatnot?
Oh, I have no idea. I think that's like the curiosity of being human. Like what is spirituality? What is the meaning of the universe? These are one of these big questions of that kind of feels like one of those big questions. We'll never have a real firm answer about that.
Yeah, we're not supposed to have an answer of it. I think it's more just how does one reconcile that in their own minds.
I don't know. How do you reconcile it?
But I'm open to this idea of higher power. So for me, whatever it doesn't fit into my rational mind, I do put it in this box. So, and I haven't actually talked to more people about this, but I do think a lot of my friends who I do have more conversations about this is more, they do allocate a lot of their thoughts into like their faith or the universe or what's meant to be will happen. So by allowing for that to exist, I think it does give them that leeway so that their brain can process it.
It's interesting. I brought up that story with that person about the Enneagram is because I don't have an answer. I put it into the unknown category, and I leave it there until it comes up again, and I change my thinking about it a little bit more. So I keep it in a state of limbo, so to speak. So thoughts like that, I keep in a state of limbo. I try not to let it bother me because it's difficult to rationalize.
Yeah, I do think there's some magic in the stars. I don't know. The universe will provide.
It's nice to think that, yeah. I like that.
So I think that's kind of where I think a lot of people probably do, but I would be curious to talk to more men about it because I think more men are the ones that have been resistant to it. So we'll see how that happens.
I also don't think they really think about it.
I don't know. I think at least in Taiwan, the older generation for sure leans heavily into it.
I grew up with a lot of guys, and we just don't talk about it. It's just a topic that never comes up.
Do you think maybe like certain people are just not future thinking as much?
No, not so much that. I mean, I have met some guys that are like into it, and I was curious about that. I was like, okay, cool.
The reason I say this is because a lot of the women that have come to me about fortune telling, they want their husbands to do it, and they're all like, no way.
Why not? Give it a try.
I think it's just like this like idea of like maybe a stereotype, maybe culture, like men, we don't do this, da da da. With that said, some of them have slowly eased into their wives' stories.
Yeah.
So that's like I think as open as they're gonna get. I don't think they'll ever try to experience it themselves. But that's as far as I've gone, where men are like, oh, remember what you said like X amount of time ago. This is what happened, and it's happening. And I was like, you do whatever you need to do to process that in your head.
That's so interesting. I gotta ask my mom about that more because I can't believe, like, my mom was like, okay, my dad was so anxious about his new business, and my mom's like, all right, do you want to go, like, pray? Do you want to get your fortune told? And he was like, okay. He was open to that idea, so, interesting.
He was open right away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
We'll see.
Maybe that affected my upbringing and thinking about that. I don't know.
Maybe.
Possibly.
We'll see. We'll see if things that have been said about me will come true. So we shall see. Excited to see.
Yeah.
I'm banking on it. That's why it's a big topic, guys, because I am banking on it. For those who know, it's a big year.
How many children were you going to have? 3?
No, I think 2. Even though for many of you who know me, I don't want any. So we shall see who wins.
We'll see
Fortune or Christina's free will, if there's such thing.
We never answered that question.
If there's free will?
Yeah.
There is absolutely free will. Like just the fact that I have the potential to have kids, 3 kids or whatever. I don't have to have the kids. So I do think there's like free will in that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like my friend was told like you will fare better when you leave your hometown. If she doesn't ever leave her hometown, she has this decision to do it, then she won't leave her hometown. So, yeah. My mom and I talk about that often because she, as many of you know, moved all the way to Peru from Taiwan.
Yeah.
And
from Peru to Taiwan. Taiwan to Peru. Yeah.
And only nowadays have I found out that when she was young, she was told by a fortune teller that she would do better if the farther away she goes from her hometown.
Oh, she went real far.
Yeah. So maybe she would have had a completely different life if she stayed.
Yeah. We shall never know.
And we'll never know.
We'll never know.
But anyway, I think those were at least all the questions I had. I don't know, Danny, if you had anything else that you wanted to cover in this topic of fortune telling.
No, I remember the only last thing that I like wanted to talk about was like just before getting my reading, like fortune telling reading here, I remember I was talking to my one friend about astrology, and she's such a logical person too, and I don't believe in that stuff either, but we got so into it, and it was just fun. For us, it was fun, and so I think that's what's mostly been for me, especially astrology, has always been a fun thing. And I guess now it's slightly different. But yeah, that's all I have to add about that.
All right. So I think that concludes our episode today of fortune telling because I think that's it. I think only time will tell. Only
time will tell. I don't know what you guys think about it, but have a thought. Have a think about it. It's See what you think about it at least.
I think what I find super curious is like the number of people who are very interested in it. So hopefully, I'll get to talk to them more and see what's their take on it actually.
Yeah, I think as like a recap though, I do think that our conclusion for this might also be we're reaching that point in life where you kind of want to, you are searching for your spirituality and you are trying to like figure it out and establish who you are. And I think coming to stuff like fortune telling, if you weren't into it before, is a reaching out, trying to figure out which one suits you best.
Yeah, I think it does come down to your point, everything about these like crossroads that we are in, these times of life where we have to make big decisions. We have to make decisions that will change the course of our lives, and we want to know what to do with it. Not
just want to know, but want that comforting hand, that comforting, guide, right? And so it might be fortune telling for some, and then it's
religion for others, as we covered in our last episode.
And sadly, what about those people that just don't have just any of them? Maybe they're so self-assured.
But I think people probably, I don't know, maybe they lean into other things.
Maybe.
Sure.
I
am so mean.
Yeah. And then
some people go on trips. Let's do that. Some people do go on like these like self-discovery trips.
I know.
Eat, pray, love, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something we will talk about in our upcoming episodes as well, of people taking these journeys, chapters, travels to find themselves. And I think it's all about the same thing, understanding where you want to be in the next chapter of your life.
Yeah. And I'll end this episode, unless you have concluding thoughts. No, I'll end this episode on the fact that I sometimes do like witchcraft and voodoo. Just saying.
The amount of crystals.
No. Crystals is interestingly one of the few that I did not try out yet. I love the feeling though of a crystal touching my chest just because of the cooling power. It's nice. Like if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. At least it just physically makes you feel better if you don't believe in the mystical powers of it. What I'm trying to say is that once in a while, I do pray that it is real. And I've put in my full belief.
The crystals, you mean?
Not the crystals. Like, pray to God. Please make this happen. I'll be good. And then the other one is like, witchcraft once in a while. I love it. I love thinking that I'm a witch. It's just fun.
We're gonna find some, I don't even know what those are called, dolls or
voodoo dolls.
Voodoo dolls.
Wait, what are they? I don't even know. They're called voodoo dolls. Yeah.
I don't know, with some pins in it.
No, I'm not gonna hurt anyone. But I have played with voodoo dolls when we were younger. We were all emo and going through a teenage stage. You've played with it once in a while. It's like playing with a Ouija board. You'll do it. Do it once. Do it once. Yeah. Anyways, so that's what I feel. So, everybody, thank you for joining us. And
thank you for listening. Hopefully this episode wasn't too woo-woo for everyone.
Too woo or just weird for everyone.
Sorry. But we do have our weird times.
No, I'm not sorry about this episode. I actually find this episode quite interesting. Because for me, it isn't so much mystical powers. It was more psychology,
It is psychology, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
For
all of it.
Everything we ever do, right?
Yeah.
Why we do certain decisions.
Yeah.
We just want some sort of assurance in any shape or form, right?
Yeah, we do. So, don't forget to follow us on all the social media, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you guys. Bye.